Kverneland compact disc harrow range. We have a complete range, so the smallest machine is 2.5 meters, and we then go all the way up to 7-meter trail machines. The machine that we have this morning is our compact disc 4000F, which is a fully mounted 4-meter machine, hydraulic folding. So compact disc wise, then obviously with the compact disc machine, then we have 2 rows of discs. We then have a leveling element that sits in the middle, and then our consolidation packer that sits at the back. So with the compact disc harrows, this is our Farmer, one of our Farmer ranges, our Farmer 4000. So it's a hydraulic folding, 4-meter working width, hydraulic folding. With our 2 rows of discs, they are nicely spaced, so allow for trash flow throughout the machine. Working depth wise on this machine, we can work anywhere from 2 centimeters down to 10 centimeters. On the Pro range of Qualidisc machines, we can then work down to 15 centimeters. Has a slightly bigger diameter disc. On this machine, as I said, it's a Farmer, one of the Farmer ranges. So disc wise, we run with a 520mm disc. We also have what's called a Convex Disc, so it's a nice flat disc on this surface, which then maintains a nice clean cut throughout the machine. Spacing wise, we're 90 centimeters in between our discs, so this allows for high working speed and much better trash flow throughout the machine. Also on the disc assembly itself, then we run with a maintenance-free bearings all the way through. That oil filled, we have no grease nipples on the bearing assembly, so it's a lifetime assembly with the bearings. As we move through the machine, as we move further back, then we have leveling fingers that then sit in the back. So what these leveling fingers are then doing, they're then catching any soil or any trash that moves throughout the machine, and it then just holds onto that and directs it underneath the packer. It will give us a small amount of consolidation and cultivation as well. That's spring loaded, so obviously if we do get anything nasty that goes through, the tines have got the ability to move up and out of the way and allow any stones or heavy amounts of trash to then go through. Adjustment wise on the machine, on our finger harrow, we've then got a pin arrangement, so we can then move our pins in or out, so we can carry more or less depending on the depth that we're working and the amount of trash that we're using. Depth control on the machine, it's hydraulically operated, so what we then have is our hydraulic cylinders, and we have a shim arrangement. So what we have with our shims, we're literally sliding our shims in and out to adjust our depth. It's a very fine depth adjustment on the shims themselves, so we're literally sliding the shims in and out, they're 5mm shims, so our depth control is then very, very accurate right the way across the machine. Because it's a hydraulic folding machine, we have our 4 cylinders that obviously run across. Moving to the back, then on this machine, it's now fitted with our what's called our Acti pack roller with skids and knives. We can have the full range of our packers. All of our packers fit all of our machines, but say obviously on this one this morning, then we have our Acti pack roller. It's 580mm diameter, and it's what's called a shoulder ring press. So the press arrangement on the back relies on working on the shoulder of the actual roller. So what this means in heavier soils, it's then going to give us another cultivation effect because we've got all the pressure actually on the shoulder itself, and it will also leave it in a nice corrugated effect. So in wetter weather, it will leave the soil standing up, so that will then allow it to dry out much quicker than it would do if it was consolidated flat. Also with this roller assembly, then we have our skids and knives that run out the back. What these do, we can either put them in work or take them out. At the minute they're in the out of work position. So when we then put them in work, what they will then do is give us another cultivation effect. So as the soil runs in between the packer, we then have our skid and knife assembly that then puts more or less pressure on, so we'll then break down any clods that then come from behind the packer arrangement. So depth adjustment wise, it's adjusted via the shims. We have 5mm shims that sit on the back of the cylinders, and all we then do is power the cylinder down and slide a shim in or out according to the depth that we need to go. So if you can power that down, thank you. So it's literally just a simple case of taking the pressure off the shim assembly, sliding the shim assembly across, moving that out of the way. Do the same on the next one. Move across, slide that out. I won't do the complete machine. So if you can fold that back up. And it's most important to make sure that that cylinder is then powered right the way back up against the stop. You can see at the minute we've got 3 in one side and 2 in the other, so we'll put that back to the correct position. So if you can drop that down again, thank you. So we will just make sure that we have correct shims all the way through. So 3 shims each side. Okay, thank you. Okay, so good, we're now all ready to go. We'll wait till the machine gets up to speed and then we can go back into the field and check the depth correctly. Just leave a nice level finish all the way across, right the way across all 4 meters of the machine. So yeah, we're down at the correct depth and we're nice and level all the way across, which is exactly what we're looking for. To check this, we need to be up to a normal working speed, which would be anywhere between 8 and 12 kilometers an hour. Yeah, and he's making a nice job all the way across. So the Compact Disc Farmer, then we run with a 520mm diameter disc, and as you can see we run with small notches, and the concept of the small notch is a small piece of aggregate, so we're not bringing up big lumps of soil that we then got to try and break down into some sort of seed bed. It's a fast rotating disc and therefore taking small chunks each time it rotates round. Bearing wise, then all of our bearings are mounted on the outside of the disc, so therefore any soil and trash is well away from the bearing assembly itself, because we have the disc in front of it protecting the bearing assembly. And the bearing assembly itself is a specially made, what's called an oblique bearing, which is designed especially for sideways thrust. Most bearings are designed to run in a straight line, but an oblique bearing is designed to run at an angle. Our disc assembly runs at a 15-degree angle to make sure that we get the correct cut all the way across. There again, with the disc, with the actual disc itself, the shape of the disc itself, we use what's called a convex disc, so therefore we have a nice flat surface, and the idea of this, as and when that disc wears in diameter and gets smaller in diameter, we maintain a nice straight cutting disc, so we don't compromise on our cutting performance in any way, even with a worn disc. Also on the Qualidisc Farmer, then we have what's called lateral disc adjustment. So as and when the disc diameter wears, we start off with a 520mm disc, so as and when that disc wears and becomes smaller, what we can then do, we can then make another adjustment to bring those 2 discs back into phase, to make sure that we get the correct cut all the way across the machine, even with a partially worn disc. And to do this, it's a simple case of removing the bolt at the top, rotating the disc assembly forward, replacing the bolt, and doing the same on the back row of discs to make sure that we maintain this correct cutting performance all the way through.